Hey everybody, Michelle is here. April 21st, 2026 on a Tuesday. Tuesday is usually kind of crazy because Monday, a lot of people don't like going to work on Mondays, and I've said enough about that. So Tuesdays is when everybody starts trying to rush and get things done and get things handled and taken care of. I wanted to come back through and talk about some deliberate steps that you can consider to take to help you navigate yourself around these games people are playing. Okay? People are playing a lot of games with our finances, more importantly, and as well with our lives. A lot of people are playing games with our lives because they think they're clever. They think they are high rollers. They think they are the know-it-alls. They think they are the shit. You know what I mean? They think all because they can play poker, they can play checkers, chess, blackjack, spade, whatever they're playing. A lot of people attempt to apply that to life. And I told you life is not a game. So it's not going to work. Now, it may give you that illusion that it's working because you're striking it big. You're striking it big, and then, but all of a sudden everything is going to collapse and crumble. Okay, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically. And I'm not going to say too much about that because the people that need to hear that are not listening. But trust me, once they see the effects of what you do, the righteous ones, they're going to have to shift. And that is what's happening because a lot of people are waking up and figuring it out and realizing, okay, something's not adding up here, and it hasn't been adding up for decades, for thousands of years. But a lot of us are finally snapping out of it and getting a grip and decide to deconstruct yourself. You're going to start re-examining your life. You're going to attempt to reconstruct it properly. You're going to self-educate yourself, and then you're going to see what happens from there. So let me give you some deliberate steps. And as I keep saying, life is not a strategy. Okay, life is not about scaling. As a matter of fact, because we were applying those principles, I don't know what I wouldn't say they're principles, but because we were applying those delusions and fallacies to life, a lot of people are going off the cliff, literally, figuratively, metaphorically, as far as their finances are concerned, the living arrangements, the environment, and sadly, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage due to that. Okay, consider that for yourself. So here's something I want you to consider, some steps, some deliberate steps that you can take, because as I said, people are playing games with your life because they're desperate for your finances. They want your money. Okay, so by any means necessary, they're going to do whatever they can to get your money. A lot of people are unable to pay their rent, unable to pay their mortgage, unable to pay the light bills, buy grocery, put gas in the vehicle. So they have to fleece other people. They have to, fleece other people and lie to other people. But then there's righteous people that do not operate in that way, and they do not engage themselves. I was so impressed by someone that I'm dealing with, and that person is not dealing with that. You know why? Because this particular person has life experiences. Okay, he's been burned before. He's been, he's failed before. He's been used. He's had life experiences. So when there's a strike of something ain't adding up, that's that instinct that you have to work. That you have to be considering. That's attempting to warn you. Hey, snap out of it. Warning signs, reds. Hello. Somebody's waving that red flag or whatever they call it, raising the red flag for you. And it's not about how highly educated you are, because sadly, some of those who are highly educated in that hierarchical structure and that religious tentacles didn't earn a goddamn thing. A lot of them did not step a foot in college. They just got the credentials to present to people. And of course, we believe it. If they went to this high level school, we believe it. If they went to this high level school, everybody believes it. And I know there are certain colleges though, however, that make an effort to teach their students. Okay, and they know who they are because I mentioned them a few years back. They focus on on women, which is extremely important. And then there are certain colleges that focus on men, extremely important. I want this to be very clear and effective. Biological men and biological women are not the same. Not at all. We just coexist together. Okay? We coexist together. All right? And I'm going to say this again, and I know this is a lot of people get upset. A planet cannot survive without biological women. Okay, if you can't accept that, that's on you. That's on you. Now, let's get to some deliberate steps you can take, just to make this process for you, a bit more, less about anxiety, less about stress. It's just more about functioning through life and in discovering and enjoying the process. We all have to go through this. We all have to go through making decisions. We have to make decisions. Okay, a lot of people don't want to make decisions. They want to keep, like I said, talking about strategy and and seeing how they can scale and see. But most people in that criminal negative energy focus on how to fleece you, how to get all the money they can out of you, and so that they can pay their bills or do whatever the hell they're doing. Continually to gamble their life away. There's so many, and sadly, that's gonna. I was watching something and they're talking about domestic violence. This constant involvement in war is what's creating domestic violence. Okay, snap out of it. Okay, if we are at war with other people in other countries, in other space, in other continents, that's going to trickle down to you, the individual, and you're going to take it out on your family. If we are constantly at war and violence, and and our modalities are being stretched, in other words, what we hear, what we feel, sense and receive, there's a constant imbalance. That's going to trickle down to your family, your pets. That's usually where it starts. So if we continue to participate in the act of war, okay, domestic violence will not go anywhere. Okay, our women will constantly be target, and the children and the animals. Okay, accept it or not, that's on you. War creates domestic violence. Okay, and it doesn't matter how the domestic household is set up. All right. Now, so just get real about that. Okay. Now, again, there are people out there that are desperately in a financial bind. Desperate. They bit off more than they can chew. They thought they were the shit at gambling, and it could be gambling with anything. It's not necessarily on the tables, playing blackjack, playing spade, doing, whatever they're gambling with, playing as a game. A lot of them have bit off more than they can chew. A lot of them, they are in the process of foreclosure, and the family members have no clue about that. They're in the process of having their vehicles repossessed, and the family has no idea that that's happening. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and a lot of people are just so deceptive and manipulative, and they've been doing it for life. They've been doing it since their adolescence, actually. Learning how to fleece people, learning how to, I remember one time I walked to a grocery store in my neighborhood, when I was in my teens, still in high school or middle school or whatever. And so, what my mom used to do is she would give us, I got two incidents. My mom would give us, say a $20 bill. She'll tell us what to get. And then she'll put that $20 bill in a handkerchief. And she'll tie the handkerchief in a knot where the money would be safe. We put it in our pockets and we walk to the store and pick up this and that and the other. And so when the cashier at these local convenience stores would give me cash back, because we always had some change coming back, all of that would go into the handkerchief and tied in a knot so I wouldn't lose the change or the dollars or whatever I was giving back. I can remember going home. I think I was walking home with my sister. I don't know what it was. And that handkerchief was on top of the bag, sitting on top of the bag instead of in my pocket. I don't know why maybe I didn't have any pockets. I can't remember what I was wearing. I had a bag of what my mom told me to go to the store to get. I'm walking home, minding my own goddamn business, and somebody on a bicycle come by, whoop, takes their money, and they're gone. I was like, I was somewhere else. I forgot I even put the handkerchief in top of the bag like that, where apparently they were watching on the bike. They knew that's where I put it, so because people do watch you. I mean, everywhere. People watching your behaviors and actions. That's why I say you got to change patterns sometimes. So once you're aware. And so when I get back home, my mom says, well, where's the change? It's in the bag. She says, there's nothing in the bag. And then that's when I remember this guy flew by me on a bicycle, and he took the handkerchief. Handkerchief full of money that my dad, my dad earned that money to take care of us. And this bastard on a bike, literally, figuratively, and metaphorically, a bastard, because he probably didn't have a father to teach him, and a mother to teach him not to do that, taken from other people that you didn't earn. That's coming back to haunt people too, but let's stay here. So, and the second time, I was walking to a grocery store. I was a little bit older. I put the money I can remember putting it in my sweater pocket. I was wearing a sweater, walking to the store. And I think I was on a bicycle. I can't remember. But I remember when I was fumbling around on my bike and I lost focus that I had money in my pocket that was exposed. And then you had these motherfuckers motherfuckers walking around, ain't got nothing better to do. And I felt that somebody had pushed up against me, and there was a kid on the side of me and a kid on the other side of me. And I saw that he was paying attention to my pockets. That's when I snapped out of it and realized, okay, I got cash. I was distracted. See, that's how they get you. And they still do that today. When I'm distracted trying to lock my bike onto the pole, So luckily, I caught it in time. I had some kind of instinct that, okay, somebody's around me, and they were these two young boys, and they were trying to, their hands were coming towards my pocket. I was able to stop it, save my money, save myself, save my money. In other words, I wasn't, I'll be honest, sometimes as a young girl, I had no idea. Sometimes, I would be in my own fantasy, even though I was aware, but I love to be in my fantasies. I'm gonna be honest. I'm riding to the store. It's a beautiful day. So, what's happening now? People are doing that online. They're doing these tricks and games. And I was interacting with someone online. It's a couple people, but I'm just gonna make it. I'm gonna talk a little differently because I'm not here to bash anybody. Hey, you do what you do. So I was interacting with this person because I was interested in their services. And it's like I said, this is, I'm talking about quite a bit of people, not anyone specifically. And so the conversation was going great because I was interested in this person. I thought their products were, I thought they had some decent quality products that I wanted, and everything was going great until it came to how I was going to pay for it. And so something kind of went another, as they say, something went south. We were talking great, everything's fantastic. We appeared to be bonding, and this person agreed that they could do this or that and the other. And then all of a sudden something went south. Something changed in the conversation. It was almost as if I was interacting online with somebody else. It starts out one way, then it started changing and going another way. And you especially will see that when people are wanting you to pay. I was trying to find the email. But something changed how they wanted me to pay. They didn't want that, be very, very aware of how people are telling you how to pay them. Okay? You have free will to use cash, credit cards, or checks. Now, if you want to use other third-party applications, that's your free will as well. But there was just something suspicious to me about how this person was telling me how to pay and not accepting the more traditional way to pay. That was a red flag for me. And even though this person's product, I really wanted to have this person handle some products for me and handle a project for me, I just declined. Something just didn't feel right. So I declined and decided to go elsewhere. So my point is this. Pay attention to how people are moving. Okay, that's not necessarily literally. That's figuratively and metaphorically. And sometimes you catch it. You will catch it sometimes when you're speaking face to face to people, but a lot of us do a lot of stuff online. Pay attention to how people are moving when they're talking to you. They see how excited you are. They like see how enthusiastic you are, and then that's when they come in and pull the rug from underneath you. That's when they think they got you. Okay, that's when I say you got to know when to fold, know when to hold, know when to walk away. All that kind of stuff. Something this person said immediately struck me as odd. And I'm thinking, And thankfully, I have a lot of experience. Okay, for my age. I mean, not for my age, but because of my living development, okay? And, and I know how dicey and how stressful and a lot of anxiety our finances can cause us, especially if if you are the breadwinner, and that people are depending on you, and that helped me with my dad when he was taking care of us. So in other words, trust your instinct. If someone is trying, if you're having a decent back and forth conversation with somebody, and then all of a sudden they drop a strange request of you, telling you to pay this way instead of that way, and they can't accept this, they can only accept that, that's a red flag, and you have free will to not accept it. I won't accept it. I decide if I'm going to use cash. I decide if I'm going to use credit card. I decide if I'm going to use check, and I also decide if I'm going to use any other third-party applications. I make that decision, okay? And in most cases, that should be smooth. You make an agreement, you pay, you move on, and you get your product. It's a smooth. There's no hiccups. All of a sudden, that was a hiccup for me, and that was a red flag. And I said I declined. So my point is, you have to know yourself. Okay, know how to move. And that's literally, figuratively, and metaphorically. You need to know how to move. Don't be caught off guard. It happens. We all fail. I failed. We all make mistakes. I've made plenty. We all make errors, of course. We all do. Sometimes we have to go back on what we had planned out. It didn't work out as planned. So that means I need to re-examine that. Why did it not go out? Why didn't it go as planned? And then a lot of things didn't go as planned because if they had gone through, it would have been catastrophic for me. Catastrophic. So sometimes that kind of intuition, that kind of impulse will strike you and say, hey, wait, maybe you shouldn't sign that. Maybe you shouldn't sign that agreement. Maybe you shouldn't sign that contract. Okay? Don't pay cash. Don't use your check. Don't use your credit. Pay attention to the impulses you receive. Trust yourself. Don't be rushing. Don't be desperate. You don't have to show so much excitement, even though it's exciting. It's exciting when things do finally get off the ground and start moving forward. And then we started accomplishing goals and accomplishing actions and behaviors, because it's about solutions. It's about resolutions. It's about, resolving things. It's not about sitting around all day, like I said, with a cigar in your ass, strategizing, and just having all these meetings, these Zoom meetings, all of this, meeting in boardrooms, and you're not saying a goddamn thing. Nothing has been solved. Nothing has been resolved. So what are we doing? A lot of people need to get the hell out of the way. That's number one. A lot of these so-called leaders need to move out of the goddamn way and allow somebody else to come in and give their deliberate, reasonable plans and goals as to find solutions. Not to sit around and, rambling and thinking you're the big dog and that you know it all and that it has to go your way or no way. Get that kind of criminal negative energy out of your boardrooms, out of your meetings. I don't care what title they have. Even if they are the CEO. Okay, the managers, a lot of these managers and supervisors and so-called leaders are nothing more, nothing less than dictators in the way, deliberately interfering with the flow of a positive work environment. They like the toxicity because that's what they are filled with. Nothing more, nothing less than toxicity. They're poisoning themselves and they want to poison you and I. And we won't allow it. I see it happening. And that's why I can smile within. I know some people get it. And I know some people are doing everything they can to get themselves out of the spin of delusion. Getting away from this rinse and repeat bullshit. And actually get grounded and get things done, get things solved. And if they can't solve it, they get the hell out of the way and allow somebody else to do so. Okay? I'm going to send peace and love all over the stars and moon and mountains. At the end of the day, it's about universal love. Share it.